This video is a continuation of the functions notebook, and we're going to be discussing return values from functions.
By and large, we've been outputting everything we need from our functions to the console, meaning that we're just printing everything. Now, this is not typically how things are done in practice, and we're doing this here just to show you what's going on in each function. Functions in Python all return a value when they exit. This return value from a function can be explicitly given using a return statement. So here in the example, I have a modified version of our Fibonacci function. And at the end, you see that we're returning a result. Now, in this modified version of the Fibonacci function, instead of printing out each element as we proceeded through the while loop, we're going to instead append the current Fibonacci number to a result list. And so at the beginning here, we start with a result list that we initialize to be empty. And as we go through the while loop, we're going to append the current Fibonacci number to that list. And after this loop finishes, that is, once the current value is greater or equal to n, we're going to exit the loop and then return our result list. So with these changes, if we now call our function fib2 and pass the argument 100 for n, instead of this function printing out its results, it's going to return them as a list. And if we wish to capture that return value, we can bind it to a name, right? We can assign that value to a variable. So let's call that variable f100. So now when fib2 exits, its returned value will be assigned or bound to the name f100. And of course, we can output f100 and see the list that's generated. Now, I said that all functions return a value, but we've seen many functions that don't use the return statement. So how does this work? If no explicit value is returned via a return statement, then the function returns the value none, which means null or has no value. Now, this is not the same as 0 or an empty sequence or anything like that. None is its own type, which only has the value none. So if we recall our function foo, and I'll paste it here, we can see that there's no explicit return statement. So if we print the value returned by foo, you see that we get none in the output. The first line here, foo3, is of course the print from the function foo being called, and the none is actually being printed by the print statement here at the end. Now, a return statement does not have to be the last statement in a function. It can actually appear anywhere. But when the return is evaluated, the function is exited. So for example, if we modify our function foo to return if x is equal to 3, for instance, and rerun our block, we see that the print inside foo is never evaluated. And that's because we pass the argument 3 to the function foo. So our if statement here evaluates true, and the return statement is evaluated, which means that the function foo will exit at this point and never evaluate the line print foo x. Now you probably also noticed here that the return statement did not include a value like we did with the fib2 function. A return statement can be empty, meaning that you can use a return statement to exit a function without explicitly giving it a value. And in these cases, the function will still return none. Also, you may have multiple returns in a single function, and it could be that you want to return different values depending on certain conditions or inputs to that function. So you may have as many returns as needed.